sing.
Anne Allgood is one of my very favorite actors. She has appeared in every local stage and at theaters across the country, from playing Queen Mary Stuart in Mary Stuart to Marge Simpson in Mr. Burns, a post-electric play. Anne creates characters that are believable and fascinating to watch. Her newest project, Bon Appetit, the Julia Child operetta, opens May 7th, and here to talk about the show is the lovely Anne herself. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Great.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So Julia Child.
Yes.
What a woman. Were you always a fan of her?
I didn't cut my teeth growing up watching the shows.
Yeah.
But I knew who she was, probably from the Saturday Night Live Dan Aykroyd
Dan
thing, right?
Aykroyd's thing was like I think the late 70s.
Yeah.
He did a fabulous parody of her.
He
It was
sure
absolutely,
did.
absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. Well, and this is actually a weird little thing. When I was 9 years old,
Yeah.
I went to go visit my dad and stepmom, and we each got to cook a meal. And I decided that I wanted to make boeuf bourguignon. And so, God bless her, she took me to the store and we got the French bacon and all that stuff.
Wow.
And then I came home to my mom and announced that that was my specialty.
Aha. I'll be making that from now on.
Yes, that's what I do.
That's so great.
Yeah.
This is an operetta, and I had to look that up. So an operetta is a short opera, a mixture of singing and speaking. Is that correct?
Yes, this is mostly sung through.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about, are you trained in opera?
No, I trained, bel canto, like legit voice,
Okay.
when I was in school. And I started out as like a music education major, but then switched over to theater. But I took voice lessons. And then when I was spending my time in New York, I spent a lot of time learning how to belt, because that's what you do.
Kind of hit the back of the, house,
and
right?
Scream and holler, right?
Yeah. So the show, Bon Appetit, the Julia Child operetta, what's the story arc of this operetta? What happens in this?
Well, it's 18 minutes long, and it was originally written for mezzo-soprano and a small chamber orchestra. And Mark Anders
Who's the accompanist?
He is the accompanist. He's doing yeoman's work because he's playing on a single piano like a transliteration of what the whole orchestra would play.
Now, red into the cake pans, half in each.
It's pretty much sung through, but it's a transcript, basically, of one of Julia Child's shows where she bakes a chocolate cake on stage.
TV show.
A special type of cake.
So I bake a chocolate cake on stage while I'm singing. And so I'm singing about the eggs and the chocolate and the butter. And
Chocolate is heavy, and we want a very light, delicate cake, almost like a souffle.
So most of the plays that you've been in over the years are fictional, right? So the audience doesn't have a preconceived idea of the character.
Right.
Julia Child, of course, is a real person.
An icon.
And so how do you approach her without making her a caricature?
Well, first of all, I'm not an impersonator. It's not an impersonation of her. There are times when I'll just do the voice a little bit, right? And everybody can do the voice, right? Because
they think they can anyway.
That's how they hook in,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And Lee Hoybe, who's the composer, has written the melody lines often will mimic the way her voice rose and fell. So I'm just going into it as a singer and as an actress, and what I want to do is pay homage to her love of life and her love of food.
That's good enough to eat, just as it is.
And go from there. And there are a couple of times when I've done some gestures. I've tried to watch her, she does a thing where she puts her hand behind her back and does things one-handed. Now, I'm left-handed, she's right-handed, so, mirror image that.
Yeah.
But, and she has glasses that she keeps like in the back of her apron like a gun in a holster. And she'll just go and look at things up close, and she puts them back. And so a couple of little things like that I'm trying to find that'll just drop in a little bit.
Right.
This is not quite done. I'm gonna put it back again.
So another character in the show is Julia Prud'homme, and Julia was Julia Child's real-life niece, Julia Prud'homme.
Great
so,
niece,
right.
yeah.
So what is she doing in the show?
She is telling stories about her great aunt. She's reading some poems that Paul, Julia's husband, wrote for her. Paul wrote her a sonnet every year on her birthday.
Yeah, they were deeply in love.
So in love, yeah.
Whose sweetly rounded bottom and whose legs, whose gracious face, whose nature temperate, are only equaled by her scrambled eggs.
So Julia Prud'homme, the great niece, has she helped you shape at all your approach?
She's sort of the hostess of the evening. So at the end of my opera, I'm going to serve her a piece of the cake.
Perfect.
And then at the very end, everybody in the audience gets to have
Gets
some
cake, which is
yeah.
really, does it get better? No, it can't get better. And so so you're making the cake during the show. And you are a professional baker yourself?
Oh, no, I'm a foodie.
You're
and
a
I have
foodie,
like 100 cookbooks, and I love it.
Yeah. Well, Julia Child cooked and baked some very sophisticated, complicated food that most people do not make. Let's face it, we don't follow her recipes. However, she was such a popular figure. Why do you think she hit the mainstream so deeply?
Well, I think that she made that kind of food accessible. I mean, a lot of it is, it might be involved or multi-step, but she deconstructed it in a way that made it friendly.
Yes.
You know,
even if you weren't going to make it yourself, she did make it friendly.
Yeah, and a lot of this food, I mean, we think of it as fancy, but it's peasant food, you know? Like beef bourguignon is just beef stew with red wine in it.
Which a 9-year-old can make. We find out today with you.
But I think in that day, you know, when everybody was opening things out of a can, and yet women wanted to be hostesses, you know. Yeah. And also Julia was like, well, if it got messed up, just mash it back together again.
No big deal.
Yeah, it's okay.
What do you hope the audience will take away from this experience?
Oh, wow. Well, great cake.
Yeah.
I just think it's going to be an adorable evening. I think that Julia Child is just, I think she's adorable.
Yeah. I do too.
And I think it's such a celebration, I hope the evening will be, of just her, of just
kind of life, right? What's the French phrase?
Joie de vivre.
Joie de vivre, right? The joy of life.
Yes.
Bon, right. Well, thank you so much for coming by to talk about it. I'm extremely excited about this show.
Thank you.
Bon Appetit, the Julia Child operetta, it just has 4 performances, so you want to get on this real quick. Monday, Tuesday, May 7 and 8. Monday, Tuesday, May 21 and 22 at the historic Jewel Box Theater at the Rendezvous in Belltown. And now to quote or paraphrase the last Queen of France, let us eat cake. Yes, there it is. Not as good as probably yours, but good enough.
It looks good.
Doesn't it look good? Anything. I'm a cake freak.
I love cake.
I love cake.
And chocolate.
That was really good. That was really good. That is so great. Yeah. Thanks so much. That's awesome.